Good evening, everyone. Am I audible to everyone? If I am audible to everyone, please say yes, so that we can continue our class. Okay, now there is one problem that has occurred. Largely because of that fact, I was not able to start the program, and that is that I have lost my pen and the writing pen, and this is the reason today what would be the process of our classroom, that I may not be able to write the things, but I hope if you will have any doubt, I'll able to explain it. As a compensation for that, I'll go a bit slowly with the program, because I will not be able to write, because as I said, I have lost my pen somewhere, because because of certain problem. Now in this, let us discuss today with this limitation. All right. So if you have any doubt, please raise your doubt. I'll go a bit slow, and therefore I'll be able to compensate. All right. Now, in this process, let us discuss about today's program. So we have quite a few interesting topics for this week. As you have seen that this year, the recent development with respect to the Glasgow, okay, that is about the climate change. Also, there is the WTO negotiation that is going to take place in second and third week, but there are not a lot of issues that have come up. So therefore, what we will do, we will wait for those kind of discussion. But then Glasgow is important, and of course, this November we have marked the 60th anniversary of for the formation of non-alignment movement. So therefore, we'll also take up that issue as well. Apart from that, we will also discuss the recently launched some schemes by the Prime Minister, especially in the financial market. And you have seen the questions related to that that were asked in prelims examinations. We'll be discussing that part as well. All right. So quite interesting topics for this week. So as part of this process, let us start with first discussion. But before going into the discussion of today's topic, now let me ask you if anybody has any question with respect to the last discussion what we had last Sunday. You can please raise your concern. All right. If anyone, okay, has any sort of problem with respect to the discussion that we already had last week, okay, you can raise your question. I'll wait for a few minutes, and then we will move to discuss today's issue. Okay, so what happens with some of the students that I can see were regular, but now I don't see regular? What happens to you, Chunes? Earlier you were regular, but today, after a long time, I'm seeing you, taking the current affairs classes. What's the reason for that? Anjali is a very regular. Or what about Mohammed Sain? Apart from that, there are other students. They are regularly participating. So what happens with these two guys? Okay. So Chunes, let me ask you, because you have always raised many questions, interesting questions in the classroom. So I remember your name. So why you are missing? Mental disturbance? What kind of is it? Is it serious one? Is it because of COVID and so on, or some level of disturbance? You're saying mental disturbance it's a quite serious issue, but if you are saying disturbance, okay, personal issues, that is different thing. don't use the term mental disturbance, because that is quite a serious issue. Anyway, okay, let's start with today's discussion, as I don't see any question with respect to the last class. Anyway, let's start today's discussion. So the government of India has recently announced launched two programs. All right, one scheme is retail direct scheme, that is known as retail direct scheme. Okay, through which you can participate in the bond market. So basically, uh, the people or general public can also participate, can also directly trade in the bond market. Okay, that is why this new scheme has been launched, retail direct scheme for participation in the bond market. Okay, and then there is a second scheme that has been launched by the Prime Minister, that is integrated ombudsman scheme. We know the ombudsman scheme have ombudsman scheme has launched by RBI in 1995. But now this integrated ombudsman scheme, so the other ombudsmen have been integrated with this integrated ombudsman scheme. So we will discuss separately. These are two separate schemes. All right. Since this has been launched by Prime Minister yesterday, so therefore we have added it with one information, but these two are two separate schemes. So therefore we will discuss it separately. Now let us first discuss about the first scheme, that is about the retail direct scheme. Why this scheme was launched? Of course, I understand. Even I feel there is a limit with respect to the way I can discuss. I can understand. I should have written something, but because of the problem that I don't have pen right now. So therefore, let us try to understand with this restriction. So what is retail direct scheme? So basically, if you look at this scheme allows the retail investors. Okay, so as you see, the retail investors participate in share market. They participate in share market where you can buy shares. Okay, but if you have to buy shares, you need a demat account for that, dematerialized account. Okay, so you need a demat account in order to trade in share market. All right. Now, what happens when you have to buy the bonds, the government bonds, okay, the government securities or government bonds, which is also known as GSEC. If you want to buy that government bonds, you cannot trade it with your general demat accounts. For that, the government has, it can be done directly with RBI. So one can open its account, and the account is known as retail direct gilt account. So you can open your retail direct gilt account with RBI, and then with through this account you can purchase the government bonds. You can bid for the government bonds. All right, you can buy the government bonds through these accounts. Today, in fact, I tried to make account on this platform in order to understand how it process. Okay, as you can see, as it happens with the demat account. So similarly, I try to do this one, but I found very difficulty when it comes to do registration with this account. Anyway, that's part of the government program, and government and technology do not go simultaneously, do not have a lot of issues. So of course it will take some time to get adjusted. But anyway, this is one account through which one can trade, or one can buy the government bonds, and one can sell the government bonds. This is what the account is. Okay, and the question the question related to this has already been asked in the prelims examination, where it was asked that whether one can, or the general public can purchase the government bonds through the demat account or not. That was the question that was asked. So in order to make, or in order to ensure participation of the public in the market, okay, especially the bond market, as I continue saying in every class, that the government of India is looking for maturing the bond market. So what is happening now? There is a interface, or there is a direct there is a direct relation, there is a direct relation established between the public and the government bond. So public can directly buy the government bond. All right. So bond is what? What is bond? Bond is again an instrument. Okay, it is an instrument which is issued by the government, and through which, by issuing of this government can get money, or government can get loans. Okay, so it's like it creates liability for the government. It's like an investment opportunity for the public as well. So as the public make investment in the share market, they buy the share in the market. Similarly, they can also buy the bonds. Okay, so this is a debt market, this is a equity market. So securities is securities market, or you can say the share market is an equity market where you buys the equity in a in a company. Let's say you buy, if you have bought a share of Reliance, so you have bought equity in Reliance. Similarly, let's say if you have bought one bond, one treasury bills, one GSEC of the government of India, it means what? It is not the equity. Understand? You are not the partner in the government. Here, you are giving loans to the government. All right. So it's a debt market. What it is? It is a debt market. So you are providing loans to the government. Now, we have relatively, a matured market when it comes to the equity. Okay, but the bond market is still in nascent stage in India. It still needs to mature. So government of India is looking to maturing the bond market. As part of this process, one of the avenues through which government can get money in the market can be seen by providing alternative or providing investment opportunity to the general public. Okay, now why this has been done right now? If you look at the development that has happened in the last 1 or 2 years, you will see there is a significant development uh, uh, ha, uh, development in the capital market, where where the retail investors uh, have joined the market in a significant proportion. And if you look at the total money, the composition of the market, where there are mainly three players in the market. Okay, in the capital market, one is DIA, that is domestic institutional investors. Second is foreign institutional investors, FIIs, and the third is the other retail investors. So if you look at the proportion of retail investors in the last 24 months or in the last 20 years, their proportion has jumped significantly. So that shows that the retail investors or retail investors in the country have a huge money, and they are interested to diversify their portfolio to make a bet, or to make investment in the larger projects of the country. So as part of these projects, the government of India is also trying to garner money from the various resources. For example, it needs money for infrastructure projects. It needs a lot of money for other projects. So it has continuously increased its capital intensive projects. So therefore, it requires a lot of money. If it requires a lot of money, where will it get the money? It will have to get the money through loans. Okay, it can go to the foreign investors. It can go to the foreign capital market. It can take loans from the World Bank and so many institutions. One of the avenues for the government is to issue its bond. uh, may I request, I can hear a voice from somewhere. May I request to everyone to please mute your audio, so that uh, the disturbances do not happen in the classroom. So the voice is coming from somewhere. Please mute your audio. I think Rangoli voice is coming from your side. Can you please mute your audio? Rangoli, please mute your audio. All right. Now, am I audible to everyone? Am I audible to everyone? All right. Okay. So I was talking about that. You know, this is a time when the government needs money, and at the same time, this is the time when the retail investors are showing interest in the capital market. So therefore, in such circumstances, the government has given an opportunity to the investors to make investment directly into the debt market also, that is the bond market. All right. So that is how the capital in the country will be utilized by the government in order to do progress. So this is the right approach. And on the one hand, it will help, it will provide a lot of money to the government without actually going for loan outside the country. And at the same time, it will give opportunity to the retail investors to make safe investment in debt market. All right. So this is the reason why the government has why government has initiated this scheme, so that one can participate in the market. All right. You must have heard about the GSEP program. We have already discussed in our classroom program, where the banks were buying a lot of securities from the government, and therefore the banks were able to sell, and the banks were buying a lot of securities in the market. So as a result, the government was able to garner sufficient money. For example, government of India requires 12 lakh crore rupees, and if you have already seen that government of India has, in the last 6 months, it has already raised 7 lakh crore rupees through the treasury bonds and gilted securities. So through bonds, it has already been secured. All right. So this will provide opportunity to the government to get extra money from the public. Similarly, it will provide an extra avenue for the investment to the retail investors in the market. All right. So this is the reason why it has been introduced. Now, let us come back to this program. So this program, under this program, one can buy all government securities online. Okay, both in the primary market and secondary market. Primary market, what happens with the primary market? In primary market, you buy the good. Let's say you buy share from the primary market. So when you buy share from when you buy share for the first time directly from the company, okay, when the companies are launching IPO, okay, initial public offering. Recently, you've heard about that a lot of companies are launching their IPOs, that is initial public offering. So when the companies are offering shares for the first time to the public, it happens in the primary market. Okay, so IPOs are sold directly by the companies to the public. All right. So this happens in the primary market. Similarly, here, what will happen that in the primary market, when it comes to the debt market, so government will issue bonds to whom? The government will issue bonds to the public for the first time. When the government will issue bonds to the public for the first time, it will happen in the primary market. When this bond, it goes to public, let's say there is one public that is known as X. If this bond has gone to X, now X is trading this bond, selling this bond to Y at a particular price. Okay, it is handing over this bond to Y. So this happens in secondary market. So one can buy securities in primary market and secondary market through this account. That is what it has been done. Now it is saying only one bid per security. Okay, against one security, you can place one bid can be done, and this has linked with UPI, as you can see with the Demat account. In Demat account, it is linked with the net banking, or it is linked with the UPI. You can make payment in the Demat account. You can deposit in Demat account through this ways, and once it goes to the Demat account, through Demat account you buy the share. Similarly, it happens with this one also. Let's say there is this account that is known as retail DJ. Okay, this account. So you can, through UPI, you can deposit this money in RDC, and through RDC you can bid for the government securities. Okay, once the securities you buy, the securities will be deposited in your account. This account is retail direct guild. Okay, and the money will be deducted from your account. So this is what the process will happen in this account. They can also access to the secondary market through through the link that will be given by CCIL, that is Clearing Corporation of India. This was the question that was asked. So in order to what is Clearing Corporation of India does? The Clearing Corporation of India is basically it clears all the shares or all the tradings that we do in the share market. One bid per security. One bid per security means it cannot be sold. No. It can be sold. Let's say once you do your bidding, okay. Once you have done your bidding, all right. So once you bought it, then if the trading will happen in the secondary market, so trading can be done in the secondary market depending on the instrument. Okay, if it is a negotiable instrument which can be transferred to the third parties. If it is a negotiable instrument, it can be done, but then there are some bonds which are not negotiable in nature. Okay, so in those bonds cannot be transferred into third parties. Okay, so will be there are different kinds of instrument depending on the kind of instrument. One bid per security is permitted against the security. So there is a, let's say, security, as it happens with the IPO. Okay, what happens with the IPO? You do there is a bidding that happens. So you can do bidding against the security. Okay, let's say there is a security of 10-year gilt securities. There is a let's say there is a treasury bills. There is a treasury notes. So you can bid against this treasury notes for one time in the primary market, but bidding is done in the primary market only once. But when it comes to the secondary market, buying and selling happens in the secondary market of that instrument. All right, so this is what it says. Now, so this is what was the background of the scheme. This is what the scheme has been launched, and this is what we have understood with the scheme. All right, so it's basically an account. Okay, you can open an account. Through this account, you can buy and sell government bonds in primary market and secondary market. Got that point? When it comes to the primary market, you bid for the one time. But when it comes to the secondary market, you can buy and sell the items and whatever the securities that you have. All right, this is what. So in share market, it happens. It is called as a Demat account. In bond market, now it will be called as a retail direct gilt account. All right, so these are equivalent. If some bid higher, other one cannot get the security. Absolutely, when the bidding happens, then what it is. You must have seen there are some securities. Okay, first of all, what happens? What is the process in bidding? If somebody is putting higher price, they'll get the security, or they'll get this anything. The bidding happens for them. Okay, that is the process of bidding. Now, there are treasury bills. Okay, in treasury bills, what happens? The prices are fixed. Okay, the prices are fixed, but when it comes to the gilt-edged securities, the prices are not fixed, because market price and face value are the two different things. So it depends on the demand. So if the demand is higher, the price will increase. All right. So when it comes to the gilt-edged securities, it depends on the demand. Higher the price, one can if somebody is bidding higher, they'll get that. But when it comes to the IPO, or when it comes to the primary market, here you the prices are fixed. Okay, the prices will not get fluctuated. Similarly, it will happen with the government also in the primary market, or in the case of treasury bills, or in the case of issuing of the bonds for the first time. It will be issued for the first time, so prices will be fixed. All right, when the trading happens, the prices gets fluctuated as per the demand, but when it is issued for the first time, the prices are fixed. All right, so in the primary market, it doesn't depend on the higher prices. Okay, there are, for example, in terms of IPO, these are allotted on the basis of on the basis of allotment that is done by the SEBI. Okay, so similarly, when it comes to the government securities, the allotment will be in the primary market. Allotment will be done on the basis of allotment criteria. Okay, that is used by SEBI, or in this case, if it is used by RBI or government. All right, but in the secondary market, one who bids higher will get the securities. All right, you understand this one? You understand the difference? Compare it with IPO. Chunes, am I making sense to you? Chunes? Chunes, if you have understood, please say yes. If you have not understood, please raise your question again. Okay, please. So this is what happens. All right, now, okay, anyone else has any sort of question? Please raise your question as well. As Chunes is raising question, I would expect others also to raise question. All right. Now, let us move on to the next topic. Okay. And that is the integrated ombudsman scheme. Now, remember, ombudsman, it's not a new ombudsman is not something new in banking sector. Already this was in operation. Okay. So now what has been done, that the various ombudsmen have been integrated at one place. That is what it has been done under the integrated ombudsman scheme. Now, in this process, let us first try to understand what is ombudsman. Okay, so ombudsman, it's a it's a Swedish term. Okay, what happens in a Sweden in Sweden, there is one organization which is an appellate body which basically deals with the any grievances, or if any grievances of the people are there, so those grievances are addressed by the ombudsman. All right. Here also, the ombudsman deals with the grievances of the public. So it's an appellate body. Ombudsman is an appellate body where the customer can escalate the complaints related to the financial institution. Okay, it is mentioned that the under the ombudsman scheme, the complaints, whatever the complaints are there, the financial institutions are required to solve the complaints of the public within 30 days. But if it is not able to do so, in that case, there is an appellate body that is known as ombudsman. One can go to the ombudsman and then appeal against the or whatever it has, it has the problem or it has a grievances against the financial institution. Now, the banking ombudsman scheme was launched in 1995, as I said to you. Ombudsman. Okay, now the integrated ombudsman scheme. Now, this scheme has been introduced, and this scheme amalgamates three ombudsman schemes of RBI. One is banking ombudsman scheme of 2006, ombudsman scheme of non-banking financial companies of 2018. It means what? The non-banking financial companies are also covered under the ombudsman scheme. This kind of question can be asked in prelims exams, so remember this. And the ombudsman scheme of digital transaction of 2019. It means what? The payment banks are also covered under the ombudsman scheme. So any kind of financial transaction happens, or any kind of financial institutions are there in the place, they are well covered under the ombudsman scheme. Now the integrated ombudsman scheme has further extended its coverage, and it covers other banks as well. Non-scheduled banks are also covered under the integrated ombudsman scheme. All right. So if you look at the new scheme, that is integrated integrated scheme, it will include the non-scheduled primary cooperative banks also, which has a deposit size of 50 crore and above. Okay, so this is something new which is included as part of this ombudsman scheme. So remember, this can be asked in the prelims examination. Okay, so the idea of integrated ombudsman scheme is what? It is based on the one nation, one ombudsman. So remember, there are a lot of one nation, one ombudsman, or one nation kind of concept you might have heard about. One nation, one tax, one nation, one ration card. Similarly, on that philosophy, there is a one nation, one ombudsman. Okay, so there will be integration of these ombudsmen with one portal, one email, and one address for the customer to lodge their complaint. So what it is trying to do that, the public will not have to go here and there in order to solve their financial complaints. They can go to only one address and they can solve their problems. All right. The responsibility of the representing the regulated entity and furnishing information. Okay, so here the principal nodal officer will be in the rank of general manager. General manager in a public sector bank. So that is mentioned here. So as I said, it will improve the grievance redressal mechanism for resolving the issues of the customers. So there are many facilities that have been done. For example, there will be multilingual toll-free number that will be provided to deal with the issue. It will be cost-free for the general public, and so on. So these are what it has been visualized under the ombudsman scheme. All right. So these are the two schemes that were launched by the government of India. So we have just looked at the scheme. Now, with the introduction of ombudsman scheme, look at financial market. There are a lot of problems occurred. So those problems can be dealt formally with in a better way. So therefore, therefore, the ombudsman scheme will greatly help in enhancing transparency and accountability in the banking sector. All right. So this is what you can see the benefit of introducing integrated ombudsman scheme. All right. So what is the difference between managers in bank, managers in steel plants or in mines? They have a different sort of responsibility. Just one. Okay, a manager of a bank, if a manager manages the things, okay, getting things done, that is what the role a manager plays. Okay, so manager has to manage the things, coordinate the things, okay, visualize the thing, managing the staffing, managing the work, managing coordination, managing the other things. That is what a manager does. All right, but due to the subject, you know every subject or every sector has a specific subject. Let's say in the banking sector, a manager will have to do will have to manage different kind of responsibilities, okay, than what a manager can do in the steel plants. Okay, so they are the manager irrespective of whether they are. There are some similarities in terms of the nature of the jobs, but then there are similarity in terms of subject and depth of the issues. Okay, that is how you can define the roles of managers in different places. All right, now coming back to the first question, because there was one interesting question, there was some question left. So one question has been raised by Chunes, that is, प्राइमरी मार्केट में फिक्स रेट सिक्योरिटीज मतलब सबको absolutely, you have rightly mentioned, Chunes. Absolutely. Look at IPO. Okay, now let's say you have to buy IPO of let's say today the Paytm. Okay, Paytm has gone for IPO. Okay, it has filed for IPO in with SEBI, and it is under process. And if you look at the prices are fixed, no fluctuation in the price. So if you have to buy that IPO, so you have to pay, let's say, 2,000 rupees to buy one share of one share of Paytm. But once you buy, let's say Chunes has bought one share of Paytm. Now its price goes to, there will be issue price. Okay, so the issue price is, let's say, there is a fixed cost, and then let's say 2,000 is the fixed price, and then there will be issue price based on the demand in the market. There will be issue. So let's say the issue price is 2,500 rupees. All right, on the day listing price, that is called as listing price. So listing price, issue price is 2,000, listing price, let's say 2,500 rupees. Now, once it is listing in the market, the shares can be traded between the traders. Okay, now now the company will not be involved in selling that to anyone. Rather, in the secondary market, once you have bought, let's say Chunes has bought, Chunes can sell it to me. Where? Chunes can sell it to me in the secondary market, not in the primary. Paytm has sold it to Chunes in the primary market. Now Chunes can sell it to me in the secondary market. All right, now the price will happen once. So if there are like people like me, okay, there are many people. Let's say there are other just one also wants to buy, others Anjali also wants to buy. So there are many people who wants, let's say, who want to buy the same share. Then what happens? The price of that share will increase. So fluctuation is happening where? Fluctuation is happening in the secondary market. Whereas in the primary market, the prices are fixed. So it is fixed by Paytm in conjugation with SEBI. Okay, so prices are fixed there. Now, in the secondary market, there will be fluctuation. Got that point? Similarly, it happens with the bond market also. Once it is issued by the government, the prices are fixed in the primary market. But in the secondary market, if it is a negotiable instrument, then it can be sold to third parties based on the demand, okay, based on the market price. All right. I hope I have made everything clear to you, Tunis. Okay. Now let us move on to the next topic. So we have taken up the first topic, okay, these two schemes. Now there are other topics. This is another issue topic. I'll go. Okay, this is an interesting topic, and that is NAM. Okay, non-aligned movement. Okay, so NAM, non-aligned movement. What are the features of non-scheduled primary cooperative banks? Okay, these are the features of we'll not go into detail of the cooperative banks. So cooperative banks, these are the separate discussion. If I go into that one, that will open a new channel. Okay, but anyway, non-scheduled banks are those banks which are not directly controlled by RBI. Okay, these are not mentioned under the RBI. These are not regulated by RBI's Act 1934. Okay, cooperative banks are those banks which are established by the state laws or State Cooperative Act. All right. So these are the primary. Now, when it comes to the non-scheduled primary cooperative banks, non-scheduled primary cooperative banks are basically the cooperative banks which are established at the lowest level. Okay, the PACs. Okay, so these are essential. They don't have to maintain. Let's say they don't have to maintain essentially the all the regulatory things that are done by RBI. For example, they don't have to maintain necessarily the SLR, CRR, and so on. All right. They are not directly controlled by RBI. They are controlled by state laws. They are controlled by other institutions. But now the changes are being done, and the process, these are in the process. These are in the process. Especially RBI has come up with the providing licenses when it comes to the urban cooperative banks, not the primary cooperative banks. Okay, not the rural cooperative banks. Primary cooperative banks are part of the rural cooperative banks, not the urban cooperative banks. Okay, so now RBI has come up with the new guidelines. Last year the act was introduced, and this is about the urban cooperative, regulating the urban cooperative bank, not the primary cooperative bank, not the rural cooperative banks. Got that point? Have you understood the difference? The question what you have asked about is the rural cooperative banks. Okay, the answer you are giving is about the urban cooperative banks. Got that point? There are differences in terms of regulating the urban cooperative bank and rural cooperative bank. Okay. Okay. Mohammed Saim is asking about, is there a difference between IPO and stock market? Yes. Initial public offering, when the shares are issued for the first time, it is known as initial public offering. All right. Now this once initial public offering is done, means what? It can be traded in the stock market. All right. So market is an institution, whereas IPO is a process. Got that point? So market is an institution where the IPO, FPO, and other processes are followed. Okay, so in the primary market, IPO is issued. In the secondary market, okay, that is in the stock market, the shares are traded. Is it clear to you, Mohammed Saim? Chunis, clear? Okay. now let us move on to the next issue. Is there any other issue? If you have other issues, you can please raise. I'll wait for a few minutes and then I'll start the next. Okay, now let's move on to the next issue, and that is very interesting. That is non-aligned movement. Okay, NAM at 60. That is the question, and therefore there are a lot of questions raised. The non-aligned movement. The experts are saying that after 1991, when the era has completely changed, when the two world scenario had changed, okay, and the world was largely dominated by US, okay, in that circumstances, the NAM lost its relevance. Of course, we will be talking about this one. But if you look at after 2009 or in the last decade, especially once the Trump administration came into power in US, then the situation gets changed, okay, and there is another power center that has emerged, and that was emerging right from 2000, but it has become, you know, a power center now, because there is an axis that you can see developing, that is China. Okay, and China Russia axis is increasingly challenging the hegemonic presence of the US post I would say post global financial crisis of 2009. Okay, now in 1991, when the Soviet or erstwhile USSR collapsed, the world was dominated by US. So therefore, people started questioning the NAM, non-aligned movement. And after 2009 global financial crisis, the situation has again changed. So therefore, the same experts are saying that NAM has again got its relevance. Now, in this context, we will try to understand where India stands, and does NAM have some sort of relevance in today's world? What is NAM? We will try to understand how it has evolved over over a period of time, and what is the relevance of NAM today. We will try to understand, especially when India is moving or is heavily tilted towards US and Western bloc. So we'll try to examine the role of NAM in this context. All right. So now let us start with the basic. What is NAM? So as I said, 2021 marked, okay, the 60th anniversary of the formation of NAM. Okay, it was formed in the year 2000, in the year 1961, and 2021 is the 60th year of its formation. So therefore, in this context, the relevance of NAM has become one of the important topic to be asked in this year's examination. Okay, in this year's mains examination, you can surely see the question related to NAM for this year. Okay. Now, the basic things first, we will try to understand the background of NAM. So, NAM stands for Non-Aligned Movement. It was formed during the Cold War. Okay, where the participating countries were not aligned with one country or one bloc. There were basically during the Cold War. Cold War is defined as a war. It's not a war. It's a bloc. Okay, one bloc used to be uh, led by United States, and there were other bloc that used to be that used to be controlled, or that used to be led by the USSR, former USSR. Okay, one was the capitalist. You can see the capitalist bloc, and the USSR was basically a socialist bloc. So therefore, there were two blocks, and these blocks have their own philosophies. They had different philosophies. You have understood the difference between socialist and capitalist in terms of means of production, mode of production, ownership, and everything. Okay, they have a different philosophy. So the world was divided into two major blocks. The blocks, one block led by the US, and the other Soviet bloc, other bloc which is led by the Soviet, which was socialist. Now, in this context, there were few leaders, including Nehru and General Tito of Yugoslavia, similarly Nasser of Egypt, Abdul Nasser of Egypt. So these developing countries, the leader of these developing countries, thought they would lost their relevance because they were required to go for development. These countries were colonized by these former European countries and other countries. So they needed a lot of capital in order to do development, and therefore, in order to get the capital, they cannot depend on one. They cannot solely go with one block and get the money, because there was a fear that once they joined one block, they will be controlled by that block. There was one political the political fear. On the other hand, there was some issues, that is that how they will get the money, because their objective was the national interest was the priority. And in this context, if they have to meet the national interest, they need the capital, they needed the socio-economic reconstruction of their countries. In light of that, the countries, the third world countries, decided to stay away with these blocks, so that whenever they need money, they get money from that particular, from anyone. Okay, so therefore, they decided to stay away with these blocks, and it got huge support from various countries. And if you look at the the first conference, which is known as Bandung Conference, it was organized in 1955 in Indonesia. In this conference, the third world countries from Asia and Africa came together, and these countries signed an agreement for the formation of non-aligned movement. If you look at the membership, today its member has gone 120, and it has representation from Africa, Asia, Latin America, Caribbean countries, and of course European countries. So there are other countries or third world countries who came together for the formation of non-aligned movement so that they stay away from this cold era mentality or this cold era or cold war happening between the US and USSR. The first conference of NAM was organized in 1961 under the leadership of General Tito, Josip Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, Jawaharlal Nehru, India, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and Sukarno of India. These are the probable. These are the these were the leaders who provided the leadership to NAM. The purpose of the organizations of Havana Declaration was enumerated in Havana Declaration of 1979, and it said the objective of the NAM is to ensure the national independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, security of non-aligned countries in their struggle against imperialism, colonialism, new colonialism, racism, and all forms of foreign subjugation. So, in the mind of these developing countries were the political repression that they faced during their exploitation by these imperialists. At the same time, they were having the view that the new colonialism have a different mask, and they wanted to stay away from these new colonist power. And as a result, they try to bring a collective voice from these third world countries, and therefore they were able to forward, or they were able to decide many issues, and they were able to set the international discourse during the Cold War era and after the Cold War as well. If you look at the role played by NAM, they played successful role when it comes to apartheid. They have also played a successful role in the disarmament of the third world countries. Whether it comes to the UNSC reforms or any multilateral institution reforms, they played pivotal role in there also. And at the same time, there are, of course, the regional tensions among the parties, and they, of course, at some places they were not able to, control those regional tensions, especially if you look at the tensions between India and Pakistan. That tension was so huge, tension between India and China. So similarly, tension in West Asia. So these kind of tensions they were not able to deal with. But at the same time, they were able to deal with a lot of issues. They were able to provide leadership on many issues, including apartheid, disarmament, and UNSC reform. So they were. It was quite successful. But before going into this, let us just try to understand in very brief about the guiding principles. So there are five guiding principles of NAM. What are those five principles? To maintain the peace, international peace and security, independence of every nation. Okay, it ensures that every country has right to decide their own fate. Every country has a right to take its own decision. It also emphasized on the development and socio-economic reconstruction of the third world countries. It suggests non-alignment, not going with one. As you can see that during the World War, New Zealand was a country, not New Zealand, Switzerland in Europe, which stay away from both the power centers. Similarly, on that principle, the non-alignment was the principle that it will not align with any blocks, so that it can access, it can go to any party for the for to access the capital, or for any sort of help, not participating in any military or political bloc or group. So were these countries were not the member of the NATO, okay, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They were neither the member of NATO nor the member of USSR lead bloc. Okay. So these were the principles of these were the 5 principles of the non-aligned movement. Now these are the principles, these are still there, they are still in place. So what was the India's position? Okay, if you look at, just try to understand, because we are talking about India. So of course, India's consideration, how India look at the NAM, whether India has got relevance when it comes to NAM. Of course, when it comes to look at the Nehru's success in international relation, of course, you can understand that Nehru was quite successful in its international policy, especially forwarding or pushing the non-aligned movement at the world stage. India, including other leaders that I've just referred, these leaders were able to push their agendas at the world level. And therefore, they were quite successful in raising money and emphasizing on socio-economic reconstruction. Okay, so in light of that, let us try to understand the India's position. India was the founding member. Of course, it was the largest member of NAM, and it was active participant in NAM meeting. Except 2 circumstances, now onwards, if you look at now, it has skipped some of its meeting, but if you look at the NAM's meeting, India has continuously participated in NAM meeting. But if you look at, when it started from 1961 to 61, and then during the decade of 1961, it was quite evident that India was following the NAM policy, that is non-aligned movement. However, India had also issues with non-aligned movement partners. When India faced problems, and India had to there was war against China, and therefore India did not get the support or adequate support it was hoping for from the non-alignment countries or participants. So India was also of the view that they were not getting that kind of support which is required. And in 1972, when India signed agreement with the USSR, many countries accused India to drift towards one bloc, that is USSR bloc. And there were therefore many countries, small countries, okay, it has weakened the NAM, because India was one of the largest member and India was one of the active participant in this one. So it has weakened the movement. But then India was continued with this effort, despite the fact that India had signed agreement with the USSR. But then in 1989 and 1990, USSR get collapsed. Now, world became a unipolar world. And India also accepted new economic policy in these circumstances. It had to. Now, India started, because in the capital, India started opening its economy. It accepted the freer economy. It started going to the World Bank to get the money and so much. So once again, a question was raised that India is drifting from the non-aligned movement to the to the US, and especially if you look at the later movement, for example, when India signed 123 agreement, that is nuclear agreement with USA, that also strengthened this argument. And further on, when we have a lot of defense pact with the US, the accusation is of more serious nature. And also, the Prime Minister has skipped the 17th non-aligned movement, which was organized in Venezuela in 2016. That also raised many eyebrows in the third world, that the US, that India has almost, or India has renounced the NAM policy and drifted towards US and has become the part of US bloc. Now this has further strengthened when India has become the partner of the quadrilateral security dialogue, that is also known as Quad, and especially in the context of Indo-Pacific strategy. So as part of the Indo-Pacific strategy, India has, India surely look at drifting towards US. So the accusation has further strengthened. So this is what you can see India's position with NAM. However, if you look at today's world, the relevance of NAM is still there. Through various proposition or through various events, we will try to understand whether India has maintained that NAM or not, whether NAM can play pivotal role, whether NAM will restrict it to its non-alignment with other issues. Now the world has changed. We will try to understand in that context that the global order, when the global order had changed, and when the global order had changed, in that circumstances, how the NAM can play the pivotal role, how still there are a lot of scope when it comes to the when it comes to the NAM playing the pivotal role at the world. Changing world order, as I said to you, the world from bipolar world to become to from bipolar world to unipolar world post 90, and post 2009-10, I would say it has again become, and more specifically after 2015, it has again become bipolar world, of course, largely led by China, Russia axis. But then the world is not bipolar. Today, the world is again multipolar. Okay. So in this context, because there are, first, of course, there are major power when it comes to US and China, Russia. There is, of course, two blocks that you can define. But then there are many power centers. There are many independent power centers. There are many second-rung power centers have also emerged. For example, France, Japan, Australia, India, Brazil. These are again the second-rung power. Okay, Germany. They are second-rung power, which has also emerged. So the voices of these countries cannot be ignored in today's world. So it's not purely a bipolar world, but of course there are many power centers that have emerged after especially in the last decade. So we will have to look at the relevance of NAM in that context. There are many regional power centers. For example, Israel in West Asia, Iran, Saudi Arabia. These are the power centers that have. Similarly, there are a lot of tensions that is rising in Indo-Pacific, and that tension is rising largely because of China's expansionist policy. China is asserting its right, its sovereignty over South China Sea. As a result, it has a lot of differences with the neighboring countries or the countries in the Indo-Pacific region. it has it is countering its India's hegemonic presence in Indian Ocean, and at the same time, in South China Sea, it has a tension with small islands. Further, if you look at the different kind, it's not only about the geopolitical strategy, but then other sort of strategy has also changed. Look at the migration. The migration is another issue, and as a result, you can see the rising of ethnic conflict, whether it is in Germany, France, or Israel, or any part of the world. You see there is a tendency, there is a growing tendency that is emerging, that there is a migration happening to Europe, and as a result, there are ethnic conflict emerging in different parts of the world. Apart from that, the world is continuously changing, and there is a lot. The dominant theme of this generation is, of course, the green or climate change. In the climate change context, there has been a lot of discussion for the cooperation. The world needs to act together if it has a common objective to reduce the global emission below 2 degrees Celsius, global average temperature. So if it has to save the world from catastrophic disaster, it requires cooperation, whether it is led by China, Russia bloc or US bloc. The cooperation is required. In such circumstances, you can surely see the relevance of NAM comes in, because NAM basically talks about the cooperation between the various countries. It helps to bring the African, Asian, or laggard countries into the common objectives of saving the world climate. Further, if you look at US policy has also changed. I'm talking about the geopolitics scenario which has changed, and we will try to understand in those circumstances how the name can play a pivotal role. Now, if you look at the US after Trump, you see the rise of protectionism in US is very high. The respect for global institution has lowered, whether it is United Nations or WTO or any other institution, whether it's Paris Climate Agreement and so on. The respect for the global institution and the globalization has retreated, or the globalization has turned into the protectionism. So therefore, the issues such as terrorism, nuclearization has come into at the world stage. There are also a lot of regional economic groupings. For example, RCP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, that India strayed away from that, despite being the founding member of RCP. So in that circumstances, and in this changing scenario, the name has once again got its relevance. Now, again, the world is looking to, as a divided between the two power axes. And again, the countries such as the South Asian countries and African countries, which are not yet developed, require capital from both the sides. It requires cooperation from US. It requires market from US, as well as it requires supply chain or uh, prepared materials from China as well. So again, the non or staying away from these power blocks is one of the important, principle should be of the developing countries which wants to grow faster. India is no exception. India has done or India has tried to manage, even though India is moving towards or tilted towards the capitalist capitalist bloc, which is led by US, yet it has maintained its the principle of NAM by participating in Shanghai Cooperation, by being the active member of BRICS, by being the founding member of BRICS Bank, which is known as New Development Bank, which is known, and then there is a New Development Bank. So India is participating, India is balancing, of course, tilted towards US, but it is trying to balance the major power. And the philosophy of NAM is still at the core of India's international policy. Okay, so relevance of NAM, if you look at in this broader context, the relevance of NAM can again be in order to ensure world peace, whether it is about the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the small nations, that is still there. They can still play. They can still provide the leadership to the third world nation, especially those countries which are yet to grow, which are not growing at the fast, which are facing a lot of problem when it comes to the climate. Adversity of the climate will be more on those small islands. So the NAM can provide leadership to them at the climate change negotiation, and also at WTO forum. Similarly, after Trump, when the world agencies like United Nations and WTO, had to compromise, NAM can provide support to these agencies and the global world, and can help in maintaining a balance in world order. Similarly, it can also ensure equitable world order. It can promote equitable world order despite having the political and ideological differences between the countries. It can also support or put forward the interest of developing countries when it comes to the issue of cultural diversity, human rights, promoting the issue of sustainable development and economic growth. NAM can still play pivotal role. The issues like climate change, terrorism, nuclear disarmament, and others are still there. Global hunger are still, sustainable development of human beings are still the issues. In these issues, the NAM can play pivotal role. NAM can play leadership role. So what it has to do, it has to transform itself and find out where it can go for major cooperation. There are many countries where they exist with the differences. NAM will have to exist with the differences. There are some countries which will remain tilted towards the blocks, but it requires a balancing will. It will have to exist with the problems, or with many fractures. So as a way forward, NAM as a concept is never irrelevant and has never been irrelevant. And in India's context, it will never be irrelevant. Because being one-sided, being the side of US or being the side of USSR may be maybe the requirement for the time being. But if it has to promote the national interest, it will have to keep in mind that wherever it gets the support, it should always move to get that support. So as a concept, it will always be relevant for India. If today, in today's world, if US helps us to put forward or further our national interest, there is nothing wrong to go with the US, but you should always have your strategic autonomy. As India has shown strategic autonomy in the case of buying the defense items from Russia as well. India has rightly maintained and India has rightly said it to US that it has a strategic autonomy when it comes to buying the defense items from any country. So when it comes to buying AS-400, despite having a lot of hurdles from US, India was adherent to buy that from USSR or Russia. So it shows that India has operated its strategic autonomy when it comes to take the decision for the national interest. So NAM will have to maintain that strategic autonomy. NAM can also help India to assert its soft power. India should utilize, because NAM has a 120 countries. So India can provide leadership. India can assert its soft power to these 120 countries. In fact, it has done previously in WTO agreement as well, where G33 countries were able to provide these countries were able to, and India was able to provide leadership to these countries. So similarly, it can also do with at NAM. It also provide a platform to raise important issues of today's world, such as terrorism, climate change, and trade protectionism. At the same time, NAM can also help India to garner support from Southeast Asian nation against the Chinese aggression. India is also facing the Chinese aggression at its border in Ladakh. So therefore, it can get support, okay, through NAM platform, it can get support from these Southeast Asian countries against these Chinese assertions. And last but not the least, that it provides a platform for Africa Afro-Asian cooperation. And they can be very useful, whether in terms of United Nations reform, whether in terms of climate change negotiation, whether in terms of reforms in any United Nations institution or international institution, whether it is WTO or WHO or any other institution. India's strategic interest is always with NAM. So therefore, despite the fact that the world had changed and the world is from becoming a bipolar world to unipolar world to again bipolar or multipolar world, the NAM has not lost its relevance completely. As a concept, it is still there. As a philosophy, it is still there. And as a practice, it will always be relevant for a country or for developing countries like India. So this is what we have discussed when it comes to NAM. Now I will take up the issues. Okay. So now, if you have you have heard every context of this. If you have any question, please raise your question. Tunis is asking about nuclearization of Middle East. Yes, of course, nuclearization is, that is one of the issue that you can see, whether it is about the Iran. Okay, nuclearization is definitely happening in this country. So yes, US, India, or NAM was not able to control nuclearization or a proliferation of nuclearization. Okay, so that must have been controlled, but it one of the failures that you can understand. Okay, and of course it was not able to it was not able to control nuclearization in South Asia as well. All right, so these are where the NAM was failed to provide leadership. Okay, any other question? Anyone who has not able to understand what I discussed, you can please raise your question. I will wait for a few minutes because this is an important issue. I'm sure this question will be asked in some way or the other. The question must be asked in this year's examination. How it is connected to changing policy of US? That is what we discussed. See, changing policy of the US. Okay, now what US is doing? US is, let's say, going for protectionism. Now, when it goes for protectionism means what? It is against the trend of globalization. It is against globalization. So let's say the globalization is a force, and globalization was a force. As a result, the WTO came into existence. So if today it goes to it goes against that policy, in that context, because WTO is providing a lot of benefits to the developing world as well. So these countries, the NAM countries can come up, okay, and block or prevent the various efforts made by US to promote or to go against the globalization and promote protectionism, okay, or weakening the WTO. Since US, since 2015, US is not allowing the WTO to function properly by blocking the appointment of judges in uh, in in that institution. All right, so this is how the US's policies can also be prevented by having or having a proper or better cooperation at NAM. Changing policy of US with nuclearization of Middle East. Okay, now under let's say under Biden administration, okay, the US is changing its policy towards Iran. But when it comes to the NAM, NAM can play pivotal role here also. It is India which can play pivotal role to bring US and Iran on the negotiating table. It is the other countries which can play pivotal role to ensure that the talks are happening between the Iran and US. So whether it is India or any other developing countries can play pivotal role here also. It can push USA, or of course largely it is based on US's strategic interest, but at the same time the developing countries like India can also play the pivotal role in terms of facilitating better better discussion when it comes to changing the changing the nuclearization of Middle East, or changing its stance towards Iran. All right, this is how it can play. But you cannot expect a direct role. All right, it is largely because the strategic interest, of course, US has to rebalance, you know, uh, rebalance West Asia, because West Asia is, if you look at China, China is continuously um, it is continuously making roads in West Asia, and especially after the fallout of US in Afghanistan, and uh, having a pact of making investment to the tune of $400 billion in Iran, it is able to change that scenario. China is able to, assert its power in West Asia. So therefore, in that circumstances, the US will require to shift its gear. Okay, where it was trying to isolate Iran from that policy, because Trump was having the view, it was completely supporting the Saudi Arabia, and therefore it was trying to isolate Iran. But that policy has not been very successful so far, and that has in fact pushed Iran towards Russia and China. Therefore, the power balance has to be uh, shift in West Asia, and in that circumstances, developing countries like India can play pivotal role. Whether it is Dubai, that is United Arab Emirates, whether it is Israel, they can play pivotal role when it comes to changing its instance towards Iran. All right. So this is what you can correlate, but that you cannot expect that kind of question. So that how US instance in China's in West Asia, okay, is correlated with India's interest. Of course, this is correlated, but not specifically in one country per se, but then it is again related to every countries in West Asia. All right. So you cannot expect that kind of questions. You will expect the question when it comes to India's stance with the West Asia. You can expect that kind of question. Yes. Any other question? Anyone has a question? No question so far? Okay. Anyway, now it's 7:43. Let's take a break of 10 minutes. Okay. We'll take a short break. It's 7:43. 7:44. We'll meet at 7:54. We'll take a break of 10 minutes and we'll meet at 7:54 to discuss the rest of the issues. All right. Is it okay to everyone? Please say yes if it is. Welcome back to everyone. Now let us discuss about other issues. So we have seen these issues. Now there is one issue, that is India's Glasgow announcement. Okay, so India's Glasgow Green announcement, that is the next issue. So you know there was a climate change discussion that was happening at Glasgow, US. Now at Glasgow, US, Indian Prime Minister has announced new targets for the country, and as part of uh, it's a new set of target. It has also announced that by the year 2070, India will be a carbon neutral economy or zero carbon emission economy. So that has been announced by Prime Minister. Along with this, it has also announced a number of new set of target to reduce carbon emission. So earlier, under the Paris Climate Agreement, there was every country was supposed to announce intended national climate change target. So every country announced their target. India also announced its target, and it's INDC, that is intended nationally determined contribution. Okay, so India under the INDC target under Paris Agreement, it was supposed to reduce emission intensity of its GDP by 30 to 35% by the year 2030 from the 2005 level. It was also one of the objective was to achieve about 40% of cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel based energy resources by 2030, so 40%. And third objective was to create an additional carbon stock sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide, equivalent to additional forest and tree cover by 2030. These were the objectives. Okay, so these were the target that was set up under the Paris Climate Change Agreement in 2015. But now the government of India has gone for a step further, and it has announced its new set of target. So what are those new set of target? We must know about it. So as part of this, it has announced India's current annual emission are around 2.8 billion tons, and it is projected to reach about 4.5 billion tons in 2030. Okay, similarly, Prime Minister mentioned the railways net zero 2030 target, cutting 60 million tons annually, and LED bulbs cutting another 40 million tons in a year. When it comes to India's renewable energy resources, India has reached 101 gigawatt of solar and wind due to numerous constraints. Okay, but now it is trying to the current it is trying to achieve it is trying to increase the solar power installed capacity. Similarly, infrastructure for resilient island states. India has launched International Climate Initiative called IRIS, that is Infrastructure for Resilient Island States. So this is one of the new international cooperation which has been launched. It aims to provide technical knowledge and financial assistance to small island nations with the help of developed countries. So these are the major announcements that were done by the country. Okay, now with respect to other issues, what were these instances? Of course, these are the positive things, positive development that you can see. But then there were some stances that the government of India has taken, which is contrary to what it has, what it has made the commitment. So it has a huge commitment to make. But on the other hand, if you look at the various other issues, you will see some disappointment with when it comes to deforestation or global methane places. So India has refused to join the the deforestation place, and it has not mentioned under the forestry cover, under the NDC target for forest and tree cover. Okay, so that is one. You can see the one of the instances where the disappointment can be seen by the climate experts. The second is about the global methane place. Methane is one of the important or greenhouse gas which are contributing in climate change. Whereas, so therefore, the countries are coming together to control the production of methane gas. But if you look at India has not placed any commitment when it comes to the global methane place. Okay, it did not join the global methane place. Okay, despite being the second most abundant greenhouse gas. Okay, so methane being one of the significant contributor of climate change agreement, especially if you look at the developing countries, the rice production of rice can creates a lot of methane, and this is the reason why India has not gone with the global methane place. All right, but when it comes to, if you look at from the perspective of the climate change, so of course this is something you can see a disappointment from the climate experts. India has also changed its stand when it comes to its obligation. Okay, however, when it comes to obligation, it has set new targets. So these are the stances that the country has taken at the Glasgow. Now, in order to, even though the government of India has made a commitment has made new targets, and it is going for carbon neutral economy by, or zero carbon emission economy by 2050. It requires a lot of transformation. In order to meet that commitment, it has to make various efforts. So first is it had to focus on lifestyle for environment. So it has to truly transform the low carbon future, especially it will have to adopt the electricity, uh, 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 it will have to look at the electricity generation, which is not done through thermal power. Rather, it must focus on installation of capacity, solar capacity, and production of electricity through solar and wind or renewable energy mix. Apart from that, you need to understand that the climate change is not something which is one dimensional in nature. The climate change is also happening largely because it has a multiple dimensions. So there are cross sectoral issues also that can be addressed when there are cross sectoral coordination happens. And at the same time, you need to require partnership. If you look at the climate change, if you look at the various stakeholders in the process. Okay, there are many people who are willing to, who are still engaged in using the tree or using the wood to make food. So in that circumstances, it may not promote the climate change or the climate change related lifestyle. So therefore, it requires the consultative process. It requires to take others together. Poverty and hunger are other issues that need to be covered, because this is, climate change is a multidimensional in approach. So therefore, it needs to take together. Farmers are one of the important stakeholders in the process. So therefore, the consultative process must engage the other stakeholders in the process as well. there should be accelerated deployment of electricity, electric car and electric vehicle. So if you still look at India is still depend on fossil fuels or petroleum. So we need to transform our economy from the fossil fuel based economy to electric or full cell vehicles economy, so that the personal vehicle use is reduced. If you look at today, the status of climate in Delhi, you will see that in Delhi the climate is very worse and worse, and therefore uh, the one of the important transformation that can be done to reduce this pollution level, that can be done by using the electric vehicle. So if the transformation happens from the petrol based or petrol diesel based cars to the electric vehicle based car, it will greatly help in reducing the carbon emission in Delhi, similarly with other places as well. There must be carbon lock-ins and energy use. Okay, so energy use need to be minimized by using the rapid transport system or mass transport system. That will greatly help. At the same time, there must be mandatory green construction codes, and which will definitely reduce the soot available in the environment. All right. Similarly, a leap in employment intensive recycling of waste. Okay, recycling of waste must be promoted, and for that, this process, of course, this process is employment intensive. We must promote that. It one on the one hand, it will able to manage the solid and liquid waste management. At the same time, it will also be sustainable in the way that it will ensure employment opportunity to the people. So what it is trying to tell, that if India needs to transform, and India needs to meet it's the commitment made in Glasgow 2021, it has to truly transform its economy from the petroleum or fossil fuel based economy to a green hydrogen based economy, or you can say electronic based economy, right? This is what we need to understand. So this is a short article that came into the news, so therefore we discussed it. This might be a question, but then we have talked about a lot of issues in Glasgow. So I hope you are able to understand the negotiation that is going on. Okay, and that there are a lot of discussion that we have done. So similarly, you can surely expect some question from the Glasgow commitment, and you can surely expect 2 to 3 environment related questions from that part. All right, whether the commitment that we have made, whether the movement from the petroleum based economy to hydrogen fuel based economy to, or green hydrogen based economy, or electric vehicle economy, and so on. Or the question can be asked about the preparedness of India to meet the commitment made in the Glasgow. Okay, so in that context, this answer will this discussion will be very helpful for you. All right. So the question you can surely expect. Similarly, we'll keep following. There are other meetings that are important for us. For example, WTO negotiation talks. You can surely expect one question from WTO negotiation talks. There was one article that come up, but I deliberately avoided taking that issue, because I will take up more issues which have something substantial in nature. All right. So next week you can surely expect some question from WTO as well. All right. So this is about the routes to decarbonization. As I said, improving energy cycle, energy efficiency, intensive, and decarbonization technology, deploying decarbonization technologies across all sectors, whether it is electricity, biomass, carbon capture, hydrogen economy. Okay, and reducing demand for carbon intensive products, or energy efficiency. These are the three main ways. Okay, three main ways through which the decarbonization can be done. One is to enhance the efficiency, and in this process you can continuously make investment in technology which will help in which will help in increasing energy efficiency. For example, whether it is about the solar code in buildings, whether it is about uh, using whether it is about using LED bulbs and so on. Okay, so focus must be on improving the energy efficiency. Second is reduce the carbon intensive products and use. For example, you are using vehicles that is emitting carbon, so reduce change that change that product. So structural change is required, so use those other products, for example electronic vehicle, in order to reduce the demand for carbon intensive product. Use mass transportation system in order to reduce the demand for carbon emission. Similarly, decarbonization technologies can be deployed in electricity, biomass, carbon capture, and hydrogen. So these are the three ways through which decarbonization can be done. Okay, so this is what we have seen in the context of. Is it clear to everyone? Do you have any question with respect to this particular discussion? Okay. Now let us move on to the next discussion, and that is about the sunset clause for bad banks. Okay. Now this article was basically came into news. It was saying that we must have sunset legislation. We must have sunset clause for bad banks. Why it is saying so? So you have heard about the bad banks. Bad banks are those banks which collect the NPAs of other banks. Okay, and then in turn they are specialized in recovery. They recover the money under the NPAs by various process, by selling their assets, by insolvency, by various process. All right, you have heard about that. This bad bank, okay, was conceptualized in the budget 2021, and recently the government of India has also issued a notification with the formation of the bad banks. You have heard. Now there was one criticism with the bad banks. Of course, we will discuss about this one. One criticism of the bad banks was that once you establish the bad banks, the companies, okay, the money will the NPS will go to that particular companies, but there must be a time bound. This process must be a time bound. Okay, it doesn't mean that once it is gone to a institution, a new institution has been created, which is which is widely supported by the government. So if sunset clause is not given in that context, in that situation, what will happen? The performance of that new agency will get impacted. What will happen? That it may cause evergreening of loans, okay, and transferring those NPAs to the bad banks. So therefore, a different kind of evergreening of the loans will continuously be in operation, and which will cause a huge burden on the exchequer, because it is the exchequer which will have to make payment. So therefore, it will create what? It will create a burden for the exchequer. So in a way, it is not a solution that is going to provide. It may also benefit to the capitalists, which are not, which can deploy various strategies or deploy man and material to to avoid making payment to these bad banks. So therefore, bad banks will not be able to recover. So what it is suggesting, that there must be a sunset clause, that by that year the bad bank will be able to recover all those loans, and therefore it will cease to operate. So its objective is to what? Its objective is to recover the loans. So it must be, let's say, 10 years target. So give them a mandate that within the 10 years you have to find the solution, or you have to recover all the NPAs. If you're not able to do so, in that case, there will be a continuity and there will be no time-bound solution of that NPAs. So it will create another institution which will get filled in future. So that's why it is considered that there must be a sunset clause. So in this, this is what the crux of this article. But now let us try to understand first what is the what is a bad bank, how it operates. Even though I've already discussed in previous discussion, but let's just try to understand here what is bad bank, how it works, okay, and what are the institutions that have been established for this purpose. Now, the National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited, NARCL, this has been recognized as a bad bank. Okay, bad bank is the concept. Okay, now it has been created with a different name, and the name is the National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited. So now the RBI is providing licenses to the National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited, but this has not mentioned. There has no mention about the sunset clause in it, and therefore the question is being raised about its efficacy, about its moral obligation. Okay, now first of all, just try to understand the bad banks. As I said, bad banks is what? So there are many banks in India. Okay, there are many banks, especially the PSPs, public sector banks. These public sector banks have provided money. Okay, PSBs. These are called as PSPs. So these are many PSPs. There are many PSPs. Now these PSPs, okay, they provided loans to various sectors, various corporates. Okay, but then there was, largely because they were not able to repay the money, and largely because of a slowing down of economy in 2009-10, and as a result they were not able to pay the money back to this bank. Okay, and as a result, what has happened, they that their money converted into NPA, non-performing assets. Okay, and this problem is referred as this problem in 2009-10, which was occurred in 2000 after the global financial meltdown. It is known as twin balance sheet syndrome. Why? Because balance sheet of both the companies and the PSPs both got worse. Okay, why? Because the companies were not able to recover money from the market because there was slowdown in the economy. On the other hand, they were not paying their money to PSPs or their loans to PSBs. So therefore, NPAs get increased. NPAs is considered as a bad money because, or bad loan, because these loans are not giving a return to the banks. So the PSB share of bad loan gets increased, or PSB share of NPAs got increased. So therefore, it's a good loan and bad loan ratio got worse. Okay, now let's say it has a good loan of, or good capital of 50 rupees, but it has another 50 rupees which is bad loan. Where bad loan in the sense because it is not giving any return. So in that sense, what happens if the banks were not able to get return, so therefore their balance sheet also get deteriorated. So therefore banks were, and once the banks get deteriorated, they are not in a situation to provide money or provide capital or deploy capital to other. So therefore, once the banking system gets collapsed in your country, it will be extremely difficult to channelize the capital for growth. So the growth is bound to get decreased, and this is what happened in Indian economy since 2000, since global financial meltdown, when the twin balance syndrome came into, and therefore you see the Indian banking system was in mesh, and the banking system was the entire banking system did not collapse, but it was in mesh. It was in great mess, and therefore it was not able to provide, or it was not able to finance the various infrastructural project or various companies for their projects, and therefore the economic growth also get slowed down. So what the bad banks suggest, that look, this, there are many PSBs, whether it is PNB, SBI, or any other, they have their share of NPAs. Now there is a bad bank, this bad bank, okay, in this case National Asset Reconstruction Company. So there is a National Asset Reconstruction Company, it will buy all these NPAs from these banks. Okay, so here in this figure, I'll just show you one figure. So here, just look at this one. There's a bad bank. So bad bank has a two structure. Okay, so it is a two-tier structure. One is NARCL and second is IDRCL. Okay, so there is one bad bank, NARCL. So what NARCL will do, there are various commercial banks. So the commercial banks has NPAs, non-performing asset, as I said, they have good assets. There is no need to buy the good assets. There is a need to buy this NPAs, because this NPA is creating problem. That is known as bad loan. So what it will do, the bad bank NARCL will buy this NPA. Let's say the cost, they have a total. Let's say there is one bank that is known as Union Bank. So Union Bank has bad loans of, let's say, 70,000 crore rupees. Got that point? Now NARCL will say to the Union Bank, look, why should I buy at a 70,000? This is something which is risk. Okay, why should I buy your loan at a 70,000 rupees? Okay, because if the loan cost is 70,000 rupees, I should not buy at a 70,000 rupees. Why? Because it's a bad loan. Whether I will be able to recover or not, there is a risk involved in this case. So therefore, there will be negotiation happen. Okay, so both commercial banks and NARCL, in this case, let's say Union Bank, will do a negotiation. Okay, so let's say this is 70,000. So NARCL will tell, look, I will able to buy it at a, let's say, just an example, at 40,000 rupees. Now the commercial bank will think, look, even though it is getting 40,000 rupees, it's good for the commercial bank, because it will get, because this 70,000 rupees is in the book, but it is not getting any profit from there. It is not getting even a single rupees from there. So therefore, even the commercial banks get 15% of this in cash. So it means what? Let's say 40,000. Okay, if there is a negotiation happens, that 40,000, so 15% of this one, that is 6,000 crore rupees, if it gets immediately, it will be able to utilize this money to give loans to someone. These are mentioned in their book, okay, their account, but these are not giving any sort of capital to them. These are not creating any capital for the bank. So even they get it immediately 6,000 rupees, and later they get 34,000 crore rupees once it is recovered. Okay, in that case, the 40,000 rupees will be in the hand of commercial bank, and they can provide it to someone. So there will be some recovery. So they will try to negotiate. Now NARCL will think, look, even if I buy at say 40,000 rupees, okay, 40,000 crore rupees of this loan, if it is able to recover, let's say 45,000 crore rupees, it will be beneficial for whom? NARCL. NARCL will earn at least 5,000 crore rupees in this process. So therefore, there will be negotiation between the commercial bank and NARCL, and there will be mutually agreed price, and there will be mutually, let's say 40,000 is the mutually agreed price. If NARCL recovers more than 40,000 rupees, then it's a profit of NARCL. But if NARCL is not able to recover 40,000 rupees, let's say it is able to recover only 30,000 rupees. In that case, the NARC will have to bear the loss of 10,000 rupees. Okay. Now, here in this process, that NARCL will be funded by the government of India. So initially, NARCL will be funded by whom? It will be funded by the government of India, and government of India will provide, the government of India will provide support to them. Now, NARCL will initially make payment of 15% of this one, and later on, once it's recover, 85% rupees will be provided at a later phase. All right. So this is what the bad bank will do. Okay. This is what the bad bank will do. Now, the bad bank, NARCL, will be one agency which will be buying loans from the commercial banks. But then this is not the agency which will sell the item. Let's say there is one company, let's say there is one company of Anil Dhirubhai Ambani, let's say ADAG. Okay. Now ADAG has a, let's say, just an example, I'm saying ADAG has a 40,000 crore rupees of loan. Okay. But ADAG is not able to provide or return that loan. In that case, their assets, okay, that will be announced bankrupt company, and therefore under the insolvency and bankruptcy code, and therefore their items will be sold in the market. Okay, so there will be buyers. So who will do this process? Who will be selling those items in the market? It is the IDRCL. So there is another company that has been created, that is India Debt Resolution Company Limited. Okay, so this company will be responsible for selling or selling those items into the market. So there will be market who will who will buy the asset of the company. Let's say in this case ADZ company's asset, and this realized amount will reach to the NARCL. NARCL in turn will pay the rest of the amount to the commercial banks. So this is how the bad bank will operate. The objective is to what? The objective is to reduce the burden of the commercial bank. So reduce the burden of the commercial bank, they freeing the commercial banks from the NPS burden. Now, initially, what happens at this phase? What is the problem? Now, let's say NARCL is created. This is where the problem is. NARCL is created. Let's say NARCL has taken here, it has taken, it has bought loan at a 40,000 rupees, but it is able to recover only 30,000. Okay. So there is a loss of 10,000 rupees, let's say from one company. There is a loss of 10,000 rupees for NARCL. Now, who will fund to NARCL? It is the government of India which will fund. Okay, so the government will fund to NARCL. NARCL will not be able to exist. NARCL will be funded by the government. And who funds the government? It is the public's money. So ultimately, the loss made by the companies will be paid by the government, and in turn paid by the public. So that is where the challenge is, that is where the problem is. So it is saying, look, if you don't make a clause that the company will have to perform, it will cease to operate, this practice will continue. Okay, this practice will continue even after 10 year, 20 year, 30 year, 40 year. And they will continuously amass the debt. They will continuously amass the bad loans, which will not be performing. And who will be funding this debt? It is the government, and in turn the public. So who is paying to this? So that's why it will again be a instrument through which the corporate will ultimately get the benefit. It will lead to the crony capitalism in the country. That's why it is said in this, that is what it is said in the article, and that is what is the problem. All right, so this is what we have discussed in this article. What it says: the absence of clause about the lifespan of an ARCL may lead to moral hazard problem. It will cause and it will lead to evergreening of bad loans. Okay, because the government is funding this NARCL or bad loan. The government guarantees which will be provided. Okay, that is something which is problematic. So what it is suggested that government should address the lifespan issue. There must be clear-cut responsibility and accountability. Accountability must be fixed by fixing the time span for this institution. Otherwise, it will lead to evergreening of loan. It will lead to taking the loans from the commercial banks, and it again there will be another institution which will be created, which will amass the huge amount of NPAs. There should be a fair and transparent mechanism while setting the haircut. Haircut means what? It is the difference. Haircut means what? It is the difference between the market price of a loan of asset and the estimation of it is done by the banks. So that is difference between that is the difference is known as haircut. So while deciding the haircut, okay, it should be fair and transparent. You should not the market value, let's say, is less, you should not increase it to higher. The net asset value of the security receipts must be fairly priced. There needs to be a strong political will to recognize the bad loans and support legal infrastructure to address willful defaulters. This is the main issue. Need political commitments, political willingness. Let's say there are companies, and there is a let's say there is a Adani company. There is a company of Adani. The political authority must have a power and willingness to deal transparently with this. If it gets defaulted, to deal with this company as well. If it gets defaulted, it must be announced insolvent, and therefore the bad loans or bad bank must have authority to sell or liquidate its item in the market. So for that we need political willingness. So if insolvency and bankruptcy code is implemented well, only then you can see that bad banks will perform well. If I say that, look, even though your company is not paying the loan amount and recovery is not happening from your company, but then your company is not being announced bankrupt, in that case what will happen? The corporate will able to retain their their asset. So if you give them threat that yes, in those circumstances, if you don't pay, your company will be liquidated, and therefore the money will be recovered by this process, then only you can see that there is a success of bad bank. If it is happening, only then it will get succeed, otherwise it will not be able to succeed. So that is what. So when it happens, when there will be time. If you don't give time, then what will happen? It will keep on doing, as it happens with the government departments. So that is what it has been suggested in this article, and that must be. And when it was formed, this was one of the major criticism, and this is a fair criticism against the bad bank. All right. So in this context, we have understood what is bad bank, how it works, and what are the fair criticism against the working of the bad bank. All right. Chunes, the flow chart, this one. See, these are commercial. These are commercial banks. Now, commercial banks has two kind of loans. One is bad loans. One is good loans. Good loans which are giving return to the banks, or good assets. Bad assets are those assets which is not giving return. Let's say I'm a bank. I have 100 rupees in my account. 50 rupees I have given to 50 rupees the good assets I do have. 50 rupees I have given to you, and you don't want to give me return. Okay, so 50 rupees I can give it to anyone. Okay, there is a money multiplier, so money will continuously multiply. So I have 100 rupees, but I'm not able to multiply my 100 rupees. I'm able to multiply only 50 rupees. Rest 50 rupees is in your hand, and you are not giving me return. So therefore I'm not able to multiply this money. Got that point? So my ability, my business ability will be restricted. So therefore the NPAs are known as bad assets or bad loans, because these are not giving return to the company. So these NPAs will be taken over by the bad bank. So of various commercial banks, PSBs and various other companies, they have a NPAs. They will sell these NPAs to the bad banks. Now, once they sell the NPAs, why they will sell the NPAs? Because they are not able to recover. Why I will sell the amount of loan that I have given to you? Because I am not able to recover from you. I will give it to someone else to recover that. I don't want to get indulged in this process of recovery. Okay. So what will happen? That particular will offer me some amount. I will take it because I will be utilize it. Okay, my money multiplier will. Let's say he has given me 10 immediately, and later on he has committed to give me 20 rupees once it will be able to recover. So today I'll get another 10 rupees to multiply it again. So my 10 rupees will get multiplied in this process, and next 1 year I'll get another 20 rupees to get multiplied. If I don't sell, my 50 rupees will not multiply at all. Got that point? So I will be able to multiply that money. Okay, I'll be able to multiply. So therefore I would like to sell it to the NARCL or bad bank. Well, the bad bank works on the proposition that, look, if I am able to buy this 50 rupees loan at a worth of 30 rupees, and if I am able to recover even 35 rupees from that particular individual, in that case the bad bank think that I will be able to earn at least 5,000 rupees. This is the proposition. That is where the problem is. If it is not able to recover, then what? Then who will pay the price? It is the government of India will have to pay the price. And in turn, who will pay? It is the public which will have to pay to, or which will have to the fund to the corporate's deficit or corporate. So the problem raised by the corporates and will have to pay by the public. That is where the problem is. And that's why it wants that there must be accountability fixed on NARCL. That, look, if you are taking loan or buying the NPAs, you must be in a situation to recover. And you recover by the fair and transparent manner. You recover by the institutions that has been institutionalized by the government. Let's say you sell, if you are not willing to give me the money, give back the money, I will do what? I will sell your properties in the market. So the bad bank has authority under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code to sell that bank's asset in the market and recover its money. That's where the problem is. that's where the political influence comes into, because the corporate will go to the political, and political influence will may affect the processing. If it doesn't happen, in that case, NARCL will will announce insolvency and bankruptcy. Under the insolvency and bankruptcy, it will liquidate the asset of the company and will recover the money. But that's where the problem is. Got that point? That is what I'm trying to make you understand, and that is what the demand of this question, this particular article is. Am I making clear to everyone? Any doubt? Okay. All right. So these are the issues that we have discussed. Okay. So we discussed the issues in length. Okay. Now some of the issues. IDRCL, CL is basically, this is basically an institution which has a specialization in selling or liquidating the assets. So let's say you have a factory. So bad bank will buy that loan from the commercial banks. Now it will authorize the IDRCL to sell their properties. So IDRCL is the operating agency which will sell your, or which will liquidate your asset in the market. Okay, it will liquidate so if I say bad bank, there are two structure of the bad bank. NARCL, which will buy the loans, and on behalf of NARCL, IDRCL will sell or liquidate the money, liquidate the asset of the particular NPA holders in the market. Making sense? All right. So these are the issues that we have discussed. I hope you have understood every bit of it. If you have any doubt, you can raise your doubt now. If you still have a doubt, you can discuss it in the next class as well. As the PPTs are provided to you, so what I would expect that you please go through the PPTs, and within the discussion that we have, if you are not able to understand, come up with the question in the next week. We will discuss again if you would have any doubt in the next class. All right. So with this, let us wrap up today's discussion. We will discuss rest of the issues, and next week we will have a new sort of discussion as well. Why there must be a time frame one more time. Okay, as I said, if I don't sell, if I say, look, it says I have amassed 40,000 crore rupees worth of loans. I am not able to recover. This IDRCL is not able to sell your asset in the market. Then where the recovery will happen? When it will pay money, there must be mentioned that when the realized amount will be paid. If it is not mentioned, the commercial banks will sell something to the NARCL and it will not get the money. Let's say I have sold it to the 50 rupees that I given to you. If I have sold it to someone, there must be promises that after certain time I will pay you the money. Now, if it doesn't pay the money, so what is the difference? If it remains in my profit book or my account, or it remains in your account, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, so therefore, if this recovery doesn't happen in a time bound manner, in that case, what is the benefit of giving it to a party? Okay, so then it again becomes the commerce. It will remain what? It will remain the NPAs. The banks will continuously have to wait to get the money, and the banks will have no access to that money which it can use for money multiplier. So therefore, you need to have a time frame, so that you have paid 15%. Let's say you have paid 6,000 crore rupees today. So I will be utilize this 6,000 crore rupees to make multiply, because it's a time is what? money. Okay, so time is money. So if I get it today, I'll be utilizing 6,000 crore rupees. If I get another 35,000 crore rupees, let's say 34,000 crore rupees in next month, so from then on, I will be utilizing for the rest of the year, I will be utilizing 34,000 crore rupees uh, uh, to multiply this money. But if I get the return after 10 years, what is the benefit of it? Got that point? So therefore, there must be a time frame for resolution of these bad assets. Am I making clear to you, Chunes? All right. So with this, let us wrap up today's discussion. Okay. So next week we'll discuss rest of this. All right. Chunes, is it clear to you? Please say yes if it is, or if you want to raise few more questions, you can. Yes, please. Okay, now let us wrap up today's discussion. Uh, Today's please send me your question, or please raise question in the next time. Please go through that. I have discussed enough on this article, and I'll discuss your issue in the next week. Okay, we will, because we'll have to respect the time as well. It's already 8:45. NPA is recovering by selling the property. Here, you just see here. When you sell the property, only then you will recover the non-performing assets of the loan. No? See, let's say you have given me your asset, you have your asset, or against this asset, you have taken the loan. Okay. So I will sell this asset in the market and recover my money. That is what it is done. Okay. So NPA will be recovered by selling the property. But who will be selling the property? It is NARCL. So here, half of the money. So banks, you can ask who will? Commercial banks. So commercial banks will recover the money. Half of the, partly it is because the negotiation is done with the NARCL through this one. And NARCL, when NARCL will sell the property in the market and somebody will buy that property, then the rest of the amount will be paid by the NARCL. So partly by selling the property, or dealing with the uh, uh, by selling the property, both the cases, there can be both the cases. You can recover by selling the property. You can give them option to pay, and if they change in both the ways. Okay, in both the ways, if they are willing to provide, then it's okay. So you will give them different sort of ways to make payment. If they are not willing to pay, then you announce them bankrupt. Okay, and then sell the property in the market. Okay, now let us wrap up today's discussion. All right, good night.